Good morning. This is Bob from the 5 Acre Woods. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Here we are getting ready for our Thanksgiving day. We have our turkey in the oven, and we have coffee being brewed, and we are going to make a Washington apple cake. Now, the reason I'm doing the voiceover on this is because I lost a lot of the audio for some reason. It just didn't work right when I was doing the recording. It was all choppy and very low. So I'm going to voice over this the best I can. As you see, the ingredients for the cake are coming up on the screen. And what we're going to do is try and talk through this until we get to the point where we're actually mixing things in there. Now, one of the things that you have to do first is you have to get your eggs ready. Now here I am, I'm putting the eggs in the mixer right now. And what you want to do with this is mix the eggs till they're very, very frothy. That's the only way to get this cake to rise to a certain degree, because the cake is a little bit on the heavy side, and if you don't incorporate as much air in as possible, but not too much air, then it won't rise right. But with practice, you'll get the cake to bake properly. Now the next thing that we're going to be putting in here, once this is all mixed up well, is the sugar and the oil. Now it has to mix pretty well. When you put the sugar and the oil in, my recommendation is to put the sugar in first. As I get ready to do this, I want to make sure that, as you can see, I'm actually talking in the video, and I don't want to get ahead of myself. So we'll just wait a little bit. In between time, you want to make sure that all your ingredients are at the ready. Make sure that you have pre-measured in bowls like I did. Now, one thing that I forgot that I do, because it's kind of like automatic. There are 3 ingredients, dry ingredients, that I put in with the egg mixture. The cinnamon, the baking soda, and the salt all go in first. Next, I'm going to be turning the machine off. I don't want too much time to stop in between. Now what I'm doing here, I'm turning up the mixer up high enough so that all those ingredients mix very well in there. Normally you would mix all those dry ingredients in with the flour. I used to do that, but I find that it just didn't turn out right, at least with the way I bake the cake. And you will too. You'll see that it is done in a certain way. And that certain way has to work for you. And some things are trial and error. Some things aren't just like as you read them in the ingredients. Now here I'm putting the sugar in and the oil on top. Now this also has to work or sorry, mix very well. Uh, this mixer I bought a long time ago when my wife and I belonged to a club, a store club, which was, I guess I can say it was called Sam's Club. And we bought the mixer there. And back then, I'm talking probably, I think I want to say back in 1985, we bought it. And we paid $300 for it. And these mixers, this particular mixer I bought, is the kind. It's a 5 quart stainless steel container that holds up to 5 quarts of anything you want to put in there. Now I'm going to get back to the flour mixture. I'm putting the flour in. Now you put about half the flour in, mix it up, but don't turn it on too high. Now your mixers will vary because my mixer can go very quick. It's almost like a small commercial mixer, and the flour will fly around like crazy. So you kind of mix it in until it's a little bit mixed, and then you mix it up a little bit more and put a little bit more in. And the consistency of this batter is going to be very, very thick. Now, usually when you make cakes and you just make them out of a box mix or something like that, you can pour the batter into cupcake papers or cake pans. But this, you'll have to spoon in, and you'll see much later when this is all mixed, how you have to actually have to do that. There I'm putting the rest of the flour in. And same thing, just start out slow. If you have this kind of a mixer, just put it on one. I think it has about 4 or 5 settings, something like that. And if you put it on the second one, by mistake, you're gonna be wearing some flour. Or at the very worst, it's gonna be all over the counter, and you'll lose ingredients. You don't want to lose amounts because this cake takes very precise measurements of ingredients. You can't control electronic things completely. They always, even this recording I'm doing now, I'm not exactly sure it's actually recording right. I've had some problems with this, and been meaning to upgrade to a little bit better piece of equipment than just my iPhone. Now, next step in this are the apples. I use apples that are from Washington State because it's called Washington apple cake. The kind of apples it's supposed to take, it doesn't matter, whatever you like, you can put in there. It's supposed to take a sweet apple, but the cake is very sweet to begin with. So I just get like a Gala apple. I don't use green apples. I don't use Granny Smith. They're best for apple pie. They're too tart for this, even though there's a lot of sugar in this recipe. And I'm using an apple peeler here. Now this apple peeler is not, it works okay, except for the fact that we had a different brand one that we were using, and it looks identical to this one, except for the fact that it was made a lot better. This one was not made so well, and I bought it. I think it was about $15 on Amazon, and it has a suction pad on the bottom that you can put on like a piece of marble, or if your countertop is smooth enough, so that when you put the apple in, as you'll see, as I'm putting the apple in here and peeling it, it will it holds it down to the countertop, so that you don't have to hold it down with the other hand, so it keeps it in one spot. Now this will peel the apple and it'll core the apple. And it does take a little bit of practice, but once you get used to it, it will prepare an apple for this recipe just perfectly. I use about 4 to 5 average size apples. What we do with the rest of this, my wife likes to put them in a pot on the stove. You get like a little pile of strings of apple and core, and she puts like cinnamon in it and whatever she likes to put in there, and just put it on low, and it's almost smells like you're baking an apple pie. The other thing I like to do with them is take all the pieces and give it to our chickens, because chickens like to eat a lot of different things, not just feed. They're actually kind of carnivorous. You could give them meat, not chicken. You could give them tuna. You could give them certain kinds of beef. You could give them bones from like like today. This day I'm going to give them the neck from the turkey that we cook, because we don't eat any of that stuff, and they'll like that. Something different for them to eat. Another thing this device does, when it cores it, it kind of makes it get cut in a certain ring style, and they're all connected. Almost looks like a slinky when you pull the apple apart. And so what I do is, what I'll show you probably in one of the procedures here, is I'm going to just cut the apple in half, and that will prepare the apple just perfectly to lay in the bottom of the pan. As you see right now, I'm showing you how it is cut in this spiral type shape, and it's also good for if you have kids to cut an apple. A lot of kids don't like the peel part of it, and you can cut the apple up and give it to them in pieces. Now you can also cut the apple ahead of time, like the day before, but what you want to do in that case, you want to put all the apples that you do cut and store, you want to put them in a bowl of water with a little lemon juice in it, and that'll keep the apple from turning brown. Now I didn't do that because I'm going to use the apple right away, and it doesn't exactly matter if the apple turns brown for this recipe, because it's going to look that way anyway after it's baked. As you can see, I'm cutting that apple just like I said before, and about 5 apples will do it. Okay, next I'm checking the turkey. Now, I don't normally use a thermometer, but I have this thermometer that works pretty well. And with this 22-pound turkey that we had bought, we don't usually buy one that large. I thought maybe I'd better use a thermometer to check it. In this case, the turkey has to be between 180 and 185. And I think when I checked it this time, it was still on the light side. I put it in at midnight the night before, and it took 7.5 hours to cook. And now here we are at the pan. I'm going to get ready for the cake. And I can see that I am explaining something here, so I'll just kind of like talk through it. Try to say what I thought I had said in the video. Like I said, the video did not record well, and so I'm voicing over because of that reason. The pan is a 13.5 by 9 pan, and it's about, I'd say, about 3 inches deep. You want to go deep with a deep pan for this cake because it rises initially, but then it drops back down, and you'll see when the cake is done exactly what I mean. Now first, I'm going to butter this whole cake pan first. It's important to butter it. Don't use say like margarine, or don't use any kind of vegetable fat and then flour. Always just butter, or spray type baker's secret, I think they call it, or Pam. Don't use those because it has a funny taste to it, and it's not necessary. The only thing you want to do is get every part of this pan that the cake batter is going to touch, because the cake batter is very sticky. And if it touches the part where you don't want it to be, then it'll come off because there's butter there. But if it isn't, then it's going to stick like glue to it. Now I got the cake pan pretty well buttered here. And next I'm going to start layering in the pieces of apple. Now initially, the bottom layer is kind of important that you get all the pieces flat on the bottom first, just a flat layer. Don't overlay the pieces on top of each other. What I mean by overlaying, just don't double up on the sections. The ends can touch and overlap a little bit, but initially get it as flat as possible, and then you can layer on. You can go pretty much about an inch and a half up with apples. Now, of course, the bigger the apple you use, the fewer you're going to need. So kind of judge it. If you get like those big red delicious apples, that you can use those. It doesn't matter. The only thing I recommend is not to use like Granny Smith apples. Don't use those. They're too tart for this recipe. I think I said that before. Those are really good for apple pies or some sort of like a tart type recipe where you're going to put a lot of sugar in there, and it's kind of counteract the tartness a lot. This has a lot of sugar, but it doesn't really mix in with the apples like an apple pie would. Now I'm getting ready to put the batter in, and trying to, it almost has the consistency of oatmeal. And you'll see what I do. I kind of put it in almost like I think the term is dollops of each corner I do, and as you see, it will not pour in. And if it does, something's wrong. You don't want it to be a thin batter. And what happens is with this batter in particular, because there's a lot of oil in it, when it gets into the oven, even if you left it just like it is now and didn't spread it around like I'm going to do, the heat would thin it out to a certain degree where it would kind of run to wherever it will go, kind of like seek its level inside the pan.
You know, it's not like you can and kind of push off the batter.
Another thing that you want to do here with and this has to do with your oven, make sure if it hasn't been done already, that your oven is level. And it may not sound like a big deal, but if your oven is not level and it's tilting forward or back, your cake will rise crooked. Now, I already leveled our oven, but over time, sometimes they can get unlevel. It's always best to check, especially if you're going to bake something, because it's obvious that if that happens, that's the reason.
That I took out already was in an oven that was 320.
Now I've spread this all around.
To cook. I put that on midnight, and here we are, almost 7:30 in the morning, and I just now took the temperature, the perfect cooking temperature. So it took a 22-pound turkey, 25 going on.
Now, when you
or more.
if you're going to bake this the next day, you could put this in the refrigerator without it being baked overnight, as long as you covered it with something. But it's really important that the next day, when you're ready to bake it, leave enough time to when you take out the when you take the cake out of the oven, to make sure it sits on the table for a while and gets to room temperature. Because when something is ice cold that comes out of the refrigerator, and you put it in the oven and it's ice cold, it's going to bake very unevenly, and the final result will not be very good.
Anyway, 5 minutes, and then test it. And that should 5 minutes, after 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. You can't really cook this cake too much.
Now, in between the time now, I've actually poured I poured this into the pan. There's a little bit of time in between before I put it in the oven, and now you can see the cake is in the oven. It's very important that it goes in the middle of the oven, not only side to side and front to back, but up and down too, right in the middle of the oven. Now start out with it being on a timer for 1 hour at 350 degrees.
Okay, we're going to start adding a little bit of milk. Now, you can use tablespoons. I can eyeball it. Now I'm going to turn this like a little bit. Now, as you can see, like I said, it doesn't take much. You don't want to add too much. It'll start reacting. And you can tell the mixer kind of gets some resistance now because it's getting thicker and getting harder for it to mix, but believe me, nothing stops these mixers. It'll eventually take over. It always wins. And it's breaking it down from the sides, like I said. So I want to Add a little bit more milk. You see, just a dab. I hope I'm getting that in the picture. I am. Just a dab, and it changes, as you can see. Cream cheese icing takes on a yellowish hue. I'm going to let that mix up a little bit, and now I'm going to add a little bit of the lemon juice. It's on there pretty good. Let's see if I can get this off. Hold on. I got it wrong. And this has a kind of a squirt tight lid, so you don't have to worry about. But don't add too much liquid. And this is concentrated lemon juice. So that's all I'm putting in. And now I'm going to test the texture of it. And taste it. A little bit more lemon juice. Then I turn it up full speed and let it really go to town. Because the icing, you want fluffy icing. You don't want chunks of the cream cheese in it. You don't want chunks of sugar, because that can happen. And it makes it spread a lot easier. Now, if this is too thick, after you make it, you can add a little bit more milk to it, but you have to put it back in the mixer or use your hand mixer. Okay, here we are, almost done with our icing. Now, you can add more milk to this to make it thinner. I wouldn't. I like it. The idea is that at this temperature, at this texture, when you ice your cake, it kind of stands up, like it has like peaks, and it gets crusty in all parts, and that's what makes this cake so good. If you make it too thin, then it kind of like gets runny, and it's not very appealing. So what I do is, next, see how much resistance I gave it as I turn the pot down and take off the whip. Milk out of the way, and now we're ready to ice the cake. Okay, and we're back. Our cake is done. It is cooled. As you can see, it was up high, now it's down low, cracked in all the nice spots. You test it with a skewer, a wooden skewer. Make sure it's done. It's completely done. It's completely cooled. Always wait for your cake to be completely cooled before you ice it. And here's our icing. I'm using a stainless steel spoon. You use a wooden spoon. Don't use cheap plastic. That stuff is dangerous. It's known to have all kinds of dangerous chemicals that can leach out. We don't use plastic spoons anymore like that. And here we go. Now, here's the consistency of our icing. And this is what you want. I put enough on here because I have two cakes I'm doing. And the icing goes on thick, but not too thick, and it doesn't go all the way to the edge. It goes right up to the edge. It's very nice. And try not to touch the cake, because
crumbs get all mixed in. That's not to say that I won't. I'm just telling you that you shouldn't, because service to guests. And I use this cake knife or icing knife, not sharp. It's nice and wide, and it's stainless steel. And always take extra for your guests. Icing, like put a little extra on there. The thickness is good. Just don't go too thick, because then it tastes a little. It's like too sickening sweet. The cake has a lot of sugar in it. That's for sure. But anyway, here it is, all iced, all done, ready for your guests. Believe me, this cake tastes as good as it looks, probably twice as good as it looks. And it is a perfect dessert for Thanksgiving Day, for Christmas. It's definitely a fall type cake, great with coffee, with tea, whatever you want. I guess what is the best part about this cake is you'll get one suggestion, and that is make it more often. With that, we say happy Thanksgiving. My wife Deb is in the kitchen with me right now. And we wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Have a great time with your family, whatever you do. Stay safe. If you like what you see, we want to subscribe and give us a thumbs up and hit that bell for more notifications every time we make videos like this. It really helps our channel. So, bye for now.